Do you know someone who's always the victim? No matter what happens, they're never at fault. Their life resembles an endless cycle of crises. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Some people don't just experience hardship, they weaponize it. Dr. Neil Bernstein, a clinical psychologist with 30 years of experience, dedicated his career to studying this phenomenon. His essential book, The Victim Mentality, exposes how certain people weaponize helplessness as a powerful control mechanism. This isn't about genuine hardship, but rather a sophisticated form of psychological manipulation that traps kind people in endless guilt cycles. Today I'll decode their entire playbook and arm you with practical strategies to break free permanently. Most of us know someone like this in our personal or professional lives. Perhaps it's the coworker who always has elaborate excuses for missed deadlines. Or the family member who turns every conversation into their personal tragedy. What makes these relationships so exhausting isn't the individual problems, but the predictable, never-ending pattern. No matter how much support you offer, the crisis never actually resolves. Just when one issue seems settled, another miraculously appears. Research reveals these patterns follow specific psychological blueprints designed to keep you engaged and obligated. Understanding these mechanisms is your first crucial step toward reclaiming your peace and autonomy. Victim mentality differs fundamentally from temporary struggles we all experience. It represents an entrenched identity where individuals perceive themselves as perpetual sufferers. Every conflict confirms their persecution narrative, every criticism validates their oppression complex. This mindset often develops in childhood as a coping mechanism. Children who discover that playing helpless avoids consequences or earns special treatment often carry these strategies into adulthood unconsciously. The most revealing characteristic is what psychologists call selective helplessness. These individuals will claim complete inability to handle basic responsibilities when accountability looms. Yet they demonstrate remarkable competence when pursuing personal interests or hobbies. Such glaring inconsistencies expose the manipulation behind victim narratives. Another major red flag is crisis addiction, where individuals move from one dramatic situation to another without pause. Each new emergency conveniently resets the clock on previous unfulfilled promises or commitments. Dr. Bernstein's book shares multiple examples of people who suddenly developed mysterious illnesses when financial obligations came due. Their health crises always peaked during bill periods, then improved remarkably afterward. This pattern repeated for years until family members finally recognized the manipulation. Modern psychological research confirms these behaviors serve three primary functions. First, they preserve the victim's fragile self-image. Second, they control others' behavior through manufactured guilt. Third, they avoid the hard work of personal growth and accountability. While these strategies provide short-term relief, they create devastating long-term consequences. Relationships deteriorate as others grow exhausted by the endless drama and broken promises. Decades of psychological research reveal three core manipulation tactics used by professional victims. The first is guilt projection, where they make reasonable boundaries feel like personal cruelty. Classic lines include, "I thought you cared about me," or "I'll just suffer in silence then." These carefully crafted phrases target empathetic people's deepest fears of being inconsiderate or unkind. The second tactic is fragility inflation. They present themselves as emotionally delicate creatures who can't handle ordinary expectations. You might hear, "I'm too sensitive for conflict," or "that feedback would destroy me." Yet these same individuals often dish out harsh criticisms while demanding endless understanding for themselves. This mirrors moral hypocrisy in psychology. They maintain one set of standards for themselves while demanding completely different ones from others. Third is historical revisionism, where they completely rewrite past events to maintain victim status. When confronted with contradictory evidence, they claim faulty memory or accuse others of gaslighting them. This differs from ordinary forgetfulness by its strategic timing and self-serving nature. A classic example involves a woman who insisted her sister never helped their aging mother, despite documented weekly visits. When shown calendar evidence, she claimed the records were fabricated to make her look bad. These tactics share common psychological roots in emotional manipulation. They exploit normal human empathy while bypassing rational evaluation. The victim's apparent fragility disarms criticism before it can begin. Their selective helplessness creates problems only others can solve. Over time, this trains people to anticipate and prevent the victim's crises automatically, creating a perfect control cycle. This leads to what psychologists call learned helplessness in the targets, where they stop believing change is possible. If this resonates with your experiences, please like and subscribe to support my channel and help others discover this helpful information. Empathetic individuals are particularly vulnerable to these manipulations for understandable psychological reasons. Your natural inclination toward fairness and understanding becomes weaponized against you. Manipulative victims skillfully reframe situations as moral tests of your character rather than discussions of actual behavior or responsibility. When you hesitate to comply with unreasonable demands, they imply deficiencies in your compassion rather than addressing the real issues. Conscientious people often fall into excessive self-policing. You'll instinctively search for your own faults and concede just to relieve discomfort. Psychologists call this guilt override syndrome, where your healthy empathy gets hijacked to serve their agenda. Over time, you begin automatically distrusting your own perceptions and judgments. The most devastating cases involve long-term manipulation that spans years or decades. One woman constantly apologized for abandoning her mother, despite daily calls and weekly visits. It took professional help for her to see the truth. Her mother's endless victimhood was actually emotional manipulation. The path to liberation begins with systematic pattern recognition. Start carefully observing when helplessness emerges in your relationships. Maintain a simple journal with 3 key details about each incident. What immediately preceded the crisis, what was specifically requested of you, and the eventual outcome. This documentation often reveals the predictable rhythms and timing behind the manipulation. Next, master what psychologists call non-reactive responses. These are calm, unemotional statements that maintain boundaries without fueling arguments. Effective examples include, "I hear your perspective," or "That's an interesting interpretation." One particularly powerful response is, "I understand you feel that way, though I remember things differently." Setting boundaries produces telling reactions that reveal true intentions. Genuinely struggling individuals appreciate appropriate support when offered respectfully. Manipulative ones typically escalate dramatically, often recruiting allies to pressure you. While painful, this backlash actually signals your progress in breaking the cycle. Cognitive behavioral techniques work powerfully in these situations. Try this simple 3-step method. First, spot the manipulation as it happens. Second, pause instead of reacting instantly. Third, pick a response that honors your boundaries, not their demands. Regular practice builds a gap between trigger and reaction, putting you back in control. The difficult truth is you cannot change professional victims, that choice remains theirs alone. What you can change is your participation in their destructive patterns. When you consistently refuse to play your assigned role, their entire system begins crumbling. There exists a crucial distinction between healthy helping and toxic enabling. Authentic helping empowers both parties while maintaining boundaries. Enabling sacrifices your well-being to sustain their dysfunction. Your journey toward freedom begins with this awareness. Each small step away from manipulation creates space for healthier relationships. Remember what flight attendants say about oxygen masks: you must secure your own before assisting others. Protecting your mental health isn't selfish, it's the foundation for helping anyone effectively. The road won't always be easy, but it leads somewhere worth reaching. Wherever you are in this process right now, know that change begins with a single conscious choice. Today could mark that turning point.